Viva that was sitting on the dining room table one day that my husband had brought, and I picked it up, and it was very fabric-like. It wasn't papery and it wasn't embossed. And I just started twisting it and folding it, and then I realized, you know what? It's very much like cloth. So then I would make elements like these, and then coil it like you're coiling a basket or coiling a ceramic pot. And it's just paper and glue, and then spray painted so that they're impervious.
Amazing.
And then embellished a little bit with other, either acrylic or some other materials. This is just twisted tape, like masking tape.
Debra, it's so great to meet you.
You too. This is, and coming all the way from Vienna, huh?
Yes.
I haven't been in Vienna since I think 1980.
Really? Long time ago.
Long time ago.
But Debra, I absolutely love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yes, really. I looked at on Instagram at all your reels and what you do and how you just pick up things in the street and create, and that's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's my passion. It's what I love to do, and it's always been automatic. It's just intuitive. So it wasn't coming from any training or anything, just the desire to see the world in an intimate kind of way.
Well, I also thought about, because I saw one of the videos where you just picked up a nail and immediately you knew there's something that you can do with it. So do you just see an object and then do you know immediately what you're going to do, or do you pick it up with the possibility it can be something?
It's always a possibility because we have to become friends and relate to each other. And in that first meeting, there's an interest and a connection. But, like these are wheels that somebody threw away a computer table and they were in the street. So I picked them up. I knew they would be earrings because there were only two. There were two more on the table part. But by the time I went out the next day with a screwdriver and a pliers, it was gone.
Oh, I see.
But, these were already on the street. So I embellished them a little bit, a little color, and I knew they'd be earrings. And everybody says, aren't they heavy? But they're aluminum and plastic, so they're not very heavy at all. And besides, beauty knows no pain.
Yeah, exactly. But so you can also see, not just a single object, but like a complete thing, and then see the separate parts that you might be able to use. Like you say now.
Well, when you collect parts and you have many things, it's almost like having a palette of paint. You have every color, but you don't know till you start what you're going to mix with what you're going to blend with what until you start. And then it's the creative process, right? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it can be a mistake, or you put something together and you say, no, that doesn't work. And you can't solve it. So you say, I'll come back tomorrow. I'll have a fresh eye. And then things pop into place. So knowing that it's always a process of play, you can't make yourself crazy unless you have a deadline and you've got a commission. Oh, yeah. That's another thing. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it has to be joyful, and it has to come from your heart and your soul, and know that this is what you want to say. And I always say with teaching art, there's no such thing as bad art. If it's your personal statement, it's coming from your truth. And I say where there's creativity, there are no rules. Mm-hmm. Where there are no rules, there is no fear. It's only in school that school was always intimidating to me because there were rules and you had to follow them, and you had to be a square peg in a square box, as opposed to being a square peg in a round hole, Yeah. And it wasn't until graduate school that my professor would say, yes, and. It was never but, or that's not good. And at 22, that changed my life, that anything can be art or anything can be a creative act. And it can be cooking, it could be gardening. A friend of mine wrote a book, Moving to the Center of the Bed, Sheila Weinstein, after her husband died. And she had to readjust her life. And she was a concert pianist and a writer. And she would lecture about creativity, especially as we get older. And people would raise their hands in the group and say, well, I can't paint the Mona Lisa. And she'd say, the Mona Lisa's already been painted. Can you make a sandwich? That's a creative act. Because you have to decide, do I want brown bread, white bread, yellow cheese, white cheese, mustard, ketchup? That's creativity. Nobody can tell you it's bad or wrong. Leave me alone. It's my creation. It's coming from my source. Don't judge me.
Exactly.
So once you can feel that and feel free, then, and I think the kids have to get rid of the iPhone and get back to the sandbox and get their hands dirty. Because if they don't learn at that age that they can play and make a mess, and then they're going to lose their natural instinct to be creative.
Exactly. And I also think, and this is why also part why I'm doing this project, is that, to raise awareness of the importance of art, and especially for children, because I think also in schools it's become the subject, or the, music and art has become the subjects, and dancing, that's always, the half an hour at the end of the week. And this is so important, that art is so important in all aspects of life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we can learn so much. I mean, you can learn math and arithmetic, cooking. What's a half a cup? What's a teaspoon?
Exactly.
Right? In the process of making something that's personal and creative. Mm-hmm. You don't have to sit there with paper and pencil and learn math like that. And the same with so many other things. I used to volunteer at a school where they would teach weaving, because with weaving, you have to count the threads. You have to know how dense it is, how many threads are going to be in the warp, the vertical, and the weft, and the horizontal. And so you're learning a lot of skills while you're being creative.
I totally agree with you. And I think, like you say, maths and sciences are so interlinked with art that it's really sad that schools don't see that and give children the opportunity to do it.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're cutting out more and more of the music and the art and the dancing and the creative.
And also the idea of you have to be excellent in some form of art. And I think many times also back to when I was a child, and my parents used to, after a dinner night, they used to sing with their friends behind the piano. I remember the friend of my parents who used to play the piano. I mean, he was not a concert pianist; he could just play.
Yeah.
And I think with all forms of art, you don't necessarily have to, be a big, huge artist and have huge exhibitions, but just have the opportunity to play around with things.
It's not about perfection. There's never going to be perfection. The concept of wabi-sabi from Japan, imperfect, incomplete, and impermanent. And then everything is perfect. Because everything is constantly changing. The only thing constant is change. And we have to adapt our lives around that, So there's a hole in the sweater. So you mend it. The mending part is a meditation in the morning, to sit there and mend. I'm not a good meditator, but I can sit and do something repetitive, and that quiets my mind, and that's my meditation. So I often teach a workshop, mending as meditation.
Wow.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. But how did this start for you as a child? Were you always interested in things and creating? And
my mother was very creative. Of course, she was born during the Depression and the war and couldn't go to college. And my grandmother, as most grandmothers, knitted and sewed and restyled old clothes and passed them on, and repurposing, which is very chic now. but it was required and necessary back then. So grandma was always an influence. My sister and I would go to grandma's house, my maternal grandmother, and we'd go to the old sewing machine and we'd take out the button drawer and we'd throw the buttons on the living room floor. And my grandfather would say, "Oi, oi, they're making a mess." And my grandmother would say, "Be quiet, they're being creative." Because there's no such thing as a mess. You have to make a mess before you can organize it. And, I think people who were that rigid and live by the rules, they never get a chance to really dance through their life or spread out or try something new and see that, you know what? I look good in purple. I look good in chartreuse. I never tried it on. Let me. So my mother encouraged it. And my sister and I only had one doll because we loved dressing up and dancing around the house, putting on music and dressing ourselves instead of a doll. And my mother, as I said, encouraged it. If she had old hats, she gave them to us, fabric. We took modern dance where, you had fabric and you draped it.
Oh, yeah.
So, and we had piano lessons, so we'd play it. And that was our joy, and that was our play. That was the most exciting thing we could do, And we grew up as vegetarians in the late 40s, which was very rare. So we did help my mother cook a lot, peel the vegetables and cut the vegetables. And color was very important because we also knew that you have to eat color. Color is a vibration.
Yeah.
And we are nothing more than a vibration and a frequency. So we loved using color to dress up, knowing that was energetic. I live in New York where everybody wears black. They may have a whole closet full of clothes, but it's all black, maybe white, maybe a touch of red, but that's all they wear. I cannot wear black. I feel dead if I put black on. I can use it as an accent because so many fabrics have black in it, but I have to wear color.
Yeah, but you're talking about the buttons, and I remember also my grandma had a tin with buttons, and we played hours with the buttons. And after she died, I took the buttons, and my daughter was tiny, and I had her sit on the floor and play with the buttons. And people were, every time somebody see it, they would say, "Oh, but she'll put it in her ear, or she'll swallow it," or And I said, "Why would she do that?" I let her play with it, and I also believe that you don't have to buy things for children. You have to give them the opportunity to make and to create, and look how wonderful has that been for you, for your whole life creating.
But do you remember in the old days, even the generation before us, you would take an old sock and you'd make a doll out of it.
Yeah.
I did a whole series of those way back. I still have a few hanging around. But that was fun. You make the body, then you make the arms, then you tie it off and you make a head. And then it's my doll. I made it, as opposed to going out and buying something in plastic. And then in a year, it goes in the landfill. And I think we're finally waking up to that, but it took since post-war, since the 50s, when everything became junk food and junk toys and junk clothing. And now, 80 years later, we're suffering. We're paying the price, So I don't know what the answer is anymore. I could break into tears and just cry at the state of the world, but I have to restrain myself and stay positive and just find ways to play.
But I think people like you who I think also, the way you wear things. I saw also on one of the videos where you put a jacket on upside down and wrong side up. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And you have sort of the courage to wear it. And I think sometimes I wonder if we are so in this idea of that if you do something a bit different, then it's been frowned upon, but you just go out there and you do your thing.
You try it. If people laugh, that's their problem.
Exactly.
You're not doing brain surgery, so you can do no harm. At most, people will give you a smile and say, "Oh, I love that hat. Oh, I love your colors." And it puts a smile on their face. What could be better in the state of the world that is so negative now than having somebody be joyful and encourage them? I'd say, you don't have to dress like I do, but put on a scarf, try 2, try 3. If 3's too much, take it off. It's not a big deal. Just experiment. It's just a process of play. Enjoy.
And also, I think just the fact that you made something, you don't have to wear it, but the fact that you made it and that process of making it is already something wonderful.
Sure. Whenever I teach a workshop, it doesn't matter what the student makes. They're so proud that they made something that they like. They may say, "Well, I sort of like it. I'm not finished. I'm going to work on it more when I go home." Or, "Okay, I started. It gave me an idea. Now I know what I want to do the next project." And often what I do when I start a workshop, I'll give everybody a piece of paper and some things to collage, cutouts from magazine. And they start collaging. And in 5 minutes, I say, "Okay, stop." Or in 10 minutes. I say, "Okay, now tear that in half." And they say, "Tear it in half? My work of art, you want me to?" "Yeah, I want you to tear it in half, and I want you to give half to your neighbor, and they're going to give you a half. Now put those 2 halves together and see what you can do." And then in 10 minutes, I say, "Okay, now we're ready to start, because now we're relaxed, we're open, we're not afraid of tearing paper, we're not afraid of making a mistake. And now we can really start on the next project." And it's awesome when you see what happens just by the letting go. It's almost like going to a yoga class and doing some warm-ups first, or some simple stretches before you get into more difficult poses.
Oh, yeah.
We have to allow ourselves those times to explore and relax. I mean, we're so, as a culture, so success-oriented. And every young person I know is so stressed. They're either in therapy or on antidepressants, because you have to succeed, and you have to succeed in the way that the culture is telling us. And, our culture is no longer opera, dance, the Philharmonic, whatever. Our culture is the Kardashians. Who cares about tits and ass? That's all that they're about, and billions of dollars. It's so superficial. It makes me crazy. So I have to pull back and just do my own thing. I live in New York, so I live in a bubble. People always say, "Would you dress the way you dressed if you lived in Tennessee?" And I say, "Dear God, please, there's no way I would ever live in Tennessee. And dear God, there's nothing wrong with Tennessee, dear God, but it's just not for me. Please forgive me and let me always live in New York."
Yeah, and do your thing. But I saw also you make earrings from toilet paper rolls.
Yeah.
And that I love.
Okay. Well, this is a ring that was originally made for a ring show.
Yeah.
And then after I made a series of them, my best friend, who's a gallerist and responsible for every show I've ever been in and every museum that I'm now in, her name is Helen Drutt, an amazing woman at 94, still curating shows and writing books. Wow. So she curated a show on rings at the Metal Museum in, I'll think of it in a minute, what state, Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
And then she ordered about 20 of them to give to every curator and every museum director she knew. So as I'm making so many of them, I decided, well, you know what? It makes a great earring. Yes. So I started making them into earrings. And it's just the cardboard from the toilet paper.
Yeah.
3 strips cut and assembled, and then gently embellished with a little bit of paper cord, a little bit of paint, And again, they're very light, and people say, oh my God, aren't they heavy? And I say, no, they're only cardboard.
Yeah. Amazing.
And people love them, and they're not afraid to wear them.
Yeah.
And this all started when, at least 10 years ago. I started making cuffs from the toilet paper rolls. Wow. So I have a large embellished one on here, but they're just a toilet paper roll, and they're embellished with either labels or magazine pages, and then enhanced with some twisted yarn or other things, and then covered in mesh that comes from the produce bags, because that visually pulls them together and also physically holds everything in place.
Yeah, I would never have thought
I get bigger and more extreme. So this has paper cords coming off, and I love Brillo pads. I love wearing them like that, but then I can take them.
Is that a Brillo pad?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So everything has multiple lives.
Yeah.
And being that none of it is that valuable, you can do anything you want. Cut them up. If it doesn't work, you throw it away, you start again.
Now, as a few days ago, I talked to a painter, and he said that he sees the world through the eyes of a painter. So he looks at everything as a painter, as a painting. So do you see the world like that? So do you, when you walk around, everything you see has a possibility for you. It's not just the thing that it is or the function that it has.
Right.
You see different possibilities and things that you see.
It gets transformed in my mind that it can be used in another way. I used to make big pieces, but then as I got older and moved to back to New York from California, I didn't have a big studio, so I just started working on whatever I could on, let's say, a dining room table. And I did make wall pieces and some wearables. Now I just do wearables that are human size, like all my hats. You've seen the hats, right?
I saw the hats. So beautiful.
I'll put one on. Well, I've got a few right here.
Yeah.
And most of them are made from paper towels.
Really?
It was a particular brand that was Viva that was sitting on a dining room table one day that my husband had brought, and I picked it up, and it was very fabric-like. It wasn't papery and it wasn't embossed. And I just started twisting it and folding it, and then I realized, you know what? It's very much like cloth. So then I would make elements like these, and then coil it like you're coiling a basket or coiling a ceramic pot. And it's just paper and glue, and then spray painted so that they're impervious.
Amazing.
And then embellished a little bit with other, either acrylic or some other materials. This is just twisted tape, like masking tape. And
so did you study design or something? So how do you know how to, the sort of the method to how to make it? Or the skill?
Well, I studied textiles. I studied in undergraduate in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon, Carnegie Tech now. Carnegie Mellon now, it was Carnegie Tech then. And I studied woven textiles and printed textiles. But I like to manipulate materials. So I always went for the weaving and the knitting and the crocheting and the macrame. And then I went to graduate school at UC Berkeley in California. And one day I was taking a woven piece off the loom, and I said, it's just such a rectile. It's so boring. So I started to pull it out of shape. And my professor said, well, if that's what you want to do, let's not work on the loom. So you're not going to end up with a rectangle. Let's do hand techniques. So that's what I did. Crocheted units, parts, put things together. worked with things like, this is back in the late 60s, early 70s, videotape. I went to the TV station and I asked if they had any old videotape back then. And I started crocheting with all kinds of repurposed materials because it was more interesting than just going and buying very expensive silk yarn. If I bought silk yarn, it was so beautiful as it was. I didn't want to destroy it or change it. I would just take the hank and wear that as a necklace or something, or make a headpiece out of it because it was so beautiful as is. And many things are. So, so I see the beauty in what already exists. And I either take it a step further or, like this is it's kind of like ribbon or passementerie that a friend from California sent me. And it's very sturdy. You can see how
I see
thick it is. So I do a lot of finger knitting where you just do a tubular knitting on your fingers, and anybody can do that. And I teach that a lot because it doesn't matter what material you use. It turns out to be, so this is very long, so I have it doubled.
Wow. Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll add fringe to it, or sometimes I'll stuff it with fleece or silk. And it's just a form that you still see the material, but I took it a step further. And then I can take it the next step and embellish this. It can also be a headpiece. You can wrap it and turn it into sort of a turban. So, but you have to play in order for the ideas to show up.
But how amazing! When I look at you and listen to you, I think you are actually a walking artwork, really, because it's so beautiful what you make, and you wear it, and you always seem to be creating.
Well, it feeds my soul. When I wake up in the morning, I do a quiet time, which is my meditation, and I go inside and I say, who am I today? What does self want to express for me? Where am I going? What's the weather? Blah, blah, blah. And just intuitively, I just know where to reach in my closet and pull stuff out and put it on. So it's not an intellectual process. I'm going to be 80 years old in a couple months. I've been doing this my whole life, so it's intuitive.
Amazing.
And it's what gives me more than pleasure in the mornings. Yeah, it's what starts my day. It's my morning charge. And so then I feel, and even makeup. I'm probably going to be doing a makeup ad for a company. They'll let me know today or tomorrow. But even though I love things that are natural, I love to paint myself. What can I say?
Yeah.
It gives me pleasure. And in the morning I do that and I feel ready to face the day.
Yeah.
So that's who I am. And again, you don't have to be like me. Just find what suits you. Find your truth. That's all. I have a mantra called the 4 T's.
Yeah.
And the first T is truth. And we all know our truth, but our culture pushes it so far down. So we have to reach for it and pull it up and say, this is who I am. And then we have to trust it because it's too easy to ridicule it, criticize it, and say, I can't. And then you have to be tolerant of it. And then you have to wrap the whole package in tenderness and put it out there and give everybody else a space for their 4 T's. Because we all know our truth and we just have to honor it.
That is so right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And do you think, because now everybody is quite aware of recycling, do you think we see recycling only in functional things, that we want to recycle, but not so much in fashion?
But isn't fashion functional? Human beings have been wearing clothes since the beginning.
That's true.
But it is an industry, and it's an industry that's based on millions of billions of dollars. I think it's the second largest polluting industry. So I don't know what the industry is going to do. A lot of them are saying they're repurposing and they're recycling, but I don't think they're being that that ethical. They're still producing billions and billions of pieces of wearable, and people are still spending money on it. I don't, a lot of people are short on cash, but they're still going in and shopping at the big department stores when they could be shopping at thrift shops or repurposing their old clothes or curating their closet. We all have things in our closet we love, and they fall to the back of the closet. Keep going through your closet and bringing things up front, because if you loved it once, you probably still would love it. And if not, wear it upside down and backwards. That's all.
I saw such a beautiful documentary a while ago about Japanese woman who recycles old kimonos and weaves it again. And she talks about also the energy of the garment, that it's somebody wore it. It was somebody loved it before, and now she has it and she wants to treat it like that, that it's something special because it used to be special for somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you also believe that when you buy, like secondhand clothing or so on?
Well, I used to. There's nothing I need to buy anymore.
Okay.
I have enough, and people send me stuff and give me stuff. So, but I treasure what I have. I go through it and I say, I still love this. I'm not going to give it away because it's still perfect. I still relate to it. It still looks good on me. So I obviously encourage that all the time. And even though a lot of the thrift shops are getting very expensive, they used to be affordable. They used to have a $5 rack or a $1 rack. Now you walk in and everything starts at $75. Okay, it's still cheaper than retail, but it's not a bargain.
Yeah.
So, but there are, we have a flea market in our building. I live in a very unique place. It's called West Beth, and it's the largest and oldest artist residence in the country, maybe the world. We have over 600 people living here. And every election day, we have a big flea market. And then usually they do it again in May. And it's a lot of incredible stuff. And the prices are affordable. $10 for a pair of new shoes, $2 for a pair of slippers,
Oh, yeah.
And it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Have some of my best stuff is from there. And I still have a couple things that were my mother's. My mother's been dead 45 years, and I still have a piece. I've been with my partner 18 years, but we only got married a year and a half ago. And I had a black organza cape that my mother had made by a French dressmaker back in the 60s. And I still have it, and I wore that to my wedding over an old Issey Miyake. It was a skirt, but since I'm so short, I wear it as a strapless dress.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Yeah.
And my sister just said she went through an old trunk, and she has a beautiful bugle beaded dress of my mother's that was also from the 60s.
Amazing.
So we have to find a place to wear that one day because it's really gorgeous.
Amazing. But yeah, how and things, previously things were made with so much care, and you also, I remember growing up in the 60s, you bought differently. It wasn't like now, this disposable fashion. It was those days, it was really, you bought a dress and that was the dress for specific occasions, and you treasured it, and it went down to your sister when you don't wear it anymore, and it was like that.
Yes.
So,
yes. It's with respect,
Exactly,
you didn't just think of it as a piece of garbage, and it was better made. The fabric, the stitching, and I have a friend, Martina Dietrich, who's from Germany, studied in Germany, lived and worked in Italy for 15 years. And she does everything is recreated. So she takes old things and either paints them or adds things to them to embellish them. And they're just incredible. And they're stylish, but the initial garment was strong enough that
Yeah.
It still lasts, and it's in good condition.
But Debra, so when you go for a walk, do you take a bag with and just see things on your way? Or do you purposely go out and look for things?
No, not so much anymore. But, I always have a bag with me so that if I do find something, I'll pick it up. I'm running out of space, so that how much more stuff can I make? And I give stuff away and I sell some stuff, but it's almost like it's enough already.
Okay. But I spoke to an artist in South Africa. He makes chandeliers from old cool drink, the what is it, the screw tops, or he cuts up things, but he basically, it's all recycled things, but he makes the most beautiful chandeliers. And he said that he sometimes goes and he sees something in a dustbin and he would take it out, and people would sort of frown at him, for doing that. But he finds these things like that.
Well, when I do that and people say something, I say, but I try to educate them, and I say, it's clean enough. I'm going to wash it or whatever, but it's too beautiful to let it go into the landfill. So if you see something, I mean, like, well, I have all kinds of things here, but anyway, I had something out that I was going to wear. Wait, I'll quickly grab it. I mean, this is a very simple necklace, but in one of the videos, I was going through trash, and I found this toy, a child's toy.
Wow.
And I took it apart, and I just saved the hard part. But it does make a fun, silly necklace. On a summer dress for a little bit of color.
Yeah.
It's lightweight, so it's comfortable in the heat.
And what is the curly part, or the wire?
That's old telephone wire. In the old days, there was a ton of telephone wire way back that was plastic covered, and I have tons of it, and I use it for a lot of different things. And I don't know why they stopped making it, but whatever. But
I love it.
It's a treasure.
Yeah.
And then this is one that I made recently, just with miscellaneous parts. A piece of leather. I have a friend in Chicago who sends me leather from a handbag company, and a piece of plastic, and a Bakelite handbag handle, paper cord, a piece of AstroTurf that my cousin in LA sent me because he does lawn bowling, and bottle caps, and a piece of hardware, and it's a composition.
Yeah,
but it compositions.
It really looks like an artwork. I mean, so do you have these things at hand, and then you decide, or do you think about what you're putting together?
Well, I look at the elements, and then, like, I went to an event at a very famous jewelry store, La Lunas, and Elias La Lunas, and they have a museum in Greece, and they gave me a one-person show back in 2020. And so this was a Christmas party, and they gave tin boxes of candies when you left. And one of the sisters of the La Lunas family said, "Okay, so I can't wait to see what you do with it after you eat the candy."
Oh, really?
So this is what I turned this into. It's a neck piece that goes over the head. This is steel wool because I wanted something to fill this negative shape. And then the rest is just coffee, Nespresso coffee tins, and again, covers. Yeah. And this is toilet paper rolls, the natural curve. Really? And then some copper. I love copper, and I have a roll of copper that I've been carrying around with me since the 70s. And so this, makes a neck piece.
Yes, it's beautiful. And I must say, I will never use my my steel wool to scrape my pots again without thinking of you.
Oh, I love steel wool. I've always used it I make hats out of it. It's just a wonderful material because it's almost like yarn.
Yes,
because you can manipulate it. It's strong, but it's malleable.
Yeah.
So that's just another material that's very available and very, you can be very creative with it because you can do so many different things with it. You can twist it and really turn it into yarn, make it a linear element.
But I presume you are not afraid to use anything. So you just, there's nothing that you, because through the years you've made things, so there's nothing that hinders you from using something. Mm-hmm. You just, if it's something that you feel it works in this specific thing that you're making, that you'll use it.
As long as I don't have to come up with a technique to,
I see. Yeah.
Because I'm not a goldsmith, so I don't know how to do metalsmith, but I do with the found metal that I find in the street, which I've been doing since the 70s, because I was living in California. I came back to New York for a visit in the late 70s, and I didn't have a studio and I didn't have any material. So I started seeing the metal on the street. Then cars were made of metal. Now it's very hard to find. And so I started doing that while I was temporarily in New York. And I wasn't sure what kind of glue I was going to use because the pieces are not flat, so they don't stick together.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Easily. So my cousin, who is a phenomenal carpenter, told me about silicone caulking, like you use for tiles in the bathroom, because it's very strong, but it's thick. So it fills in the void where, you need to make the piece meet up with the other piece. And so I've been making these metal pieces. Most of them are in museums now because of my friend Helen Drutt. She's put me in shows and have had stuff purchased by museums. This is another one.
I love that.
I found this brass piece, which is a large piece, but that's like one of the largest pieces I've found in a long time because most everything else are like washers or smaller pieces. So this one's very special because it's fairly recent. Yeah. I made that one for my husband.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. But and there are a lot more.
But so do you do exhibitions? Do you exhibit all your things, your hats and so on?
Yeah, periodically, not so much anymore. The last major show was the one in Greece in 2000. And that could be my swan song as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, really?
Because it was really major. And then because of COVID, it was up for 2 years. They couldn't take it down and bring stuff back. So they had to leave the show up. So that was a given. Yeah.
And do you teach? You say you do workshops as well? You teach?
Yeah. Again, not so much anymore. Sometimes I do them at the museums, at various museums. During COVID, I did a lot of workshops on Zoom. Do I have anything? Oh, yeah. I'm doing a workshop. Well, they asked me to do a workshop for Earth Day, which is April 22nd. But I'm doing a lecture with a group at the New York Historical. New York used to be Historical Society. They took the society away, so now it's New York Historical or New York History. And then I'm going to do a workshop. They can't schedule me again until August, so I'm going to do a workshop at the Mad Museum of Arts and Design in August. And I don't know what I'm going to teach yet, but that's on the calendar.
But it's wonderful that you teach, because I think people should learn from you, because you're doing such amazing work, really.
Well, the beauty part of living in New York is like you're teaching all the time because you're visible, and I talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And my biggest motto is just run your mouth, because you never know who you're going to meet. And lately, like with you, I'm in touch with so many people. I had people come over yesterday. I have you today. I have somebody coming on Sunday. I can't keep track of it all.
But that's amazing, but wonderful, because now with Instagram as well, it's a way to sort of make this visible and for people to see. I love that. I love that from, people are sometimes negative about social media, but I think it's wonderful that people have the opportunity to see these things, because I think I would never have known about you if if it wasn't for social media.
Well, it is a teaching tool. And, I mean, thank God we got Zoom at COVID time, because that enabled us to really connect.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I started my project. So it's for me, it's amazing. And social media has brought me so many wonderful people. I mean, I've spoken to over 800 people already.
Oh my God.
And,
keep it going.
I find them all on social media,
Yeah.
So, and it's for me such a beautiful tool. And I think if it's used in the right way, it's so beneficial.
So beneficial. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. One of my incredible experiences goes back to Vienna in 1980.
Yes.
And I was at the International Crafts Conference that was held there. And that's actually where I met my good friend Helen Drutt. She was there and we hit it off, and we've been good friends ever since. But I was there. I was teaching at the University of California, Davis at the time. Oh, no, I had quit. I was already back in New York, but I had taught. So I went with 3 other faculty members, and the others were giving slide lectures and history lectures. But the friend I went with, Dolph Cotelli, who's a guy, we dressed up every day and we walked around the campus. And since it was an international conference, we requested that everybody bring a garment or a textile from their country and give it to us. And we hung everything out on a clothesline. And every day we would put it on and embellish ourselves, and we called it dressing up over and again, because that's all we did all day. We dressed up and we changed and we put on all these different textiles from all these different countries. And then before the end, we did a workshop. And then for the last dinner, everybody had to dress up and wear something that they made. It was
amazing.
Incredible. It was so beautiful being able to see everybody's culture come together.
Yes.
And it was so much fun.
Now that you're talking about it, isn't it amazing that you can do that, that you can, through art, bring also, we talk about music and bringing people together through dance, but look at what you've done, through textiles.
But that's what's going to create world peace,
Absolutely.
Not all this other garbage that they're talking about, but connecting, simple connecting,
Exactly, But Debra, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Let's stay in touch.
Yes,
if you
definitely.
ever come this way, let me know if you're in New York, okay?
Absolutely. I would love that. I would love that.
Great.
Debra, have a lovely day.
Thank you so much. You too.
And hope to see you soon.